Okay. Thank you for being here, everybody. I would like again to recognize and introduce to you, for those who weren't, please, for those who weren't in our town hall meeting, Ms. Paquero, Ashley Paquero is here with us, representative and consultant from the Office of Chapter School of DBI. Thank you for being here, spending so much time, okay? Please feel free, because I know you're going to drive away. Okay, feel free anytime you want to go. Okay, let's start with welcome to call. I call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Dr. Stevenu, please. The items in the agenda, can I have the agenda is right there. I have another one. Please. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent items of the agenda, please?
No, it's not. It's the approval of the agenda at this point.
Approval of the agenda, yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Just fix my name.
Can I have a second, please?
Yes. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public forum. We have nobody registered to speak. Approval of December 2019 Board of Directors and Board of Directors meeting minutes. Please, you received all the minutes, and I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes. Okay. Any discussion? Any corrections or changes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is consent items. Ms. Rhoda Patterson, yes. Can you make a motion? Do you have any changes to make, or make a motion to approve the consent items?
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the consent items with the principal technology facilities, ASEP, and CFI report.
Yes, you received all of these reports already. And can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Got it. Next item is Board of Directors and Board of Trustees Finance and Budget Report. So this is a joint Board of Directors and Board of Trustees meeting, Foundation and Board of Directors. I would like to request John to go ahead with your financial report for the month of January, and then the Treasurer will take over. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The budget is actually looking very good at the present time. We're showing about $120,000+ surplus at the present time. We are still slow in getting revenue from the counties, and that's because the state budget has not been approved, but the state is allocating money slowly to each of the counties. The counties just have not given it to us, so we're anticipating some more funds from the county. We took some money out of our savings account at one point a few months ago because we had not received money. That has been put back into the savings account, so our savings account has been replenished, and we're still showing a slight increase or a slight surplus at the present time. I caution, there's an item that I'm going to put on that I need to add in a minute, and that's our insurance has to be renewed. We have that budgeted, but there is an increase in the insurance because the state rates increased last year. It's going to be about a $5,000 or $10,000 difference between what we budgeted and what is actually occurring. We're overall at the present time we're good.
The question. This week, the legislature voted to sustain the veto of the governor on the budget line, specifically about the teacher pay raises, which was proposed at 3 or 3.5% for 2 years, I believe. So the idea is that those who the governor and the Democrats want to have a bigger pay raise. I'm just wondering if you have done any scenarios that to look into how a bigger pay raise might impact our budget.
Not at the present time.
Can I have a motion to approve the budget?
I move that we approve the budget.
Any other discussion of the budget?
At this time, I'm not sure if it's the right time, but I would like to make a motion that we approve our renewal, our insurance. It's with the same company, it's the same coverage, and it's just a little bit more than what we budgeted, but we need to get that done, and it was my fault. Lena actually sent it to me about 3 weeks ago, and I forgot all about it to put it on the budget, but it's we need to do that in the next week or our insurance will lapse.
How much is the additional?
About $10,000.
The additional money for the year?
Why?
Because the rate, last year, there were more claims throughout the state because of the different weather incidents that occurred. So every insurance company went up on rates last year. So even your homeowners rates went up.
Can I have a motion to?
But yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the re-upping our insurance.
Can I have a second, please?
Yeah, so you said, so I don't know why we can't hear her, but Yanni, is it possible that there's other companies that may have a better rate?
That's what we're looking into for next year. Lena already has it to check with a couple of other companies. And there's one in particular that I've mentioned to her that they go out and research or they run everything against like a computer program that runs it and compares it with other companies. So that's what we intend to do.
But you can't do it for this year?
No, it's too late for this year.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is accepting resignation of Ms.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need the.
I'll go,
yeah.
Yes, I'm
I
sorry.
went for the budget or trustees as well, the foundation. We had a slightly larger increase this past month because the rent for November and December hit, so we had essentially a double this month. The bills for Daryl's audit cleared, and the invoice for Burton Engineering for the initial work also cleared. We ended up with a net cash increase of $63,000 for a total of $581, and that's about all we got here. With an ending balance in the account is $133,000, and for the money market is $144,000.
And we should be receiving the quarterly bank reporting within a couple days.
Yeah, it needs to be approved by the end of the month, so we'll receive that next week.
The Board of Trustees, you can make a regular version.
Yep, I'll make a motion to.
No, you can, you got a president.
She needs to ask for.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Can we have a motion to approve the
financials for the Board of Trustees, please. Thank you. Second? Any opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, thank you. You want to say anything else? Do you have anything else to say?
No.
Okay, one minute, let's go ahead now. Board of Directors, Board of Finance and Finance by we're doing that. Accepting resignation of the teacher, Miss Ashley Aragona. Can I have a motion to accept the resignation?
So moved.
Okay, you received, I think I sent you the resignation letter, sent to the Board of Directors, okay? It was a very nice letter, and so just to tell you, you received already. So, is there any discussion about the resignation?
I want to ask Ms.
Yes.
Brighton if she can offer any other insights about the reasons for the resignation.
Right, she would like to move closer to her family in Pennsylvania. She's looking to move out of the state. We are actively looking. At this time, we post positions on our website as well, which I put in my principal's report, because this is when we start looking for next year, making sure we have a good pool of candidates for the upcoming school year. So we are actively searching. We have the second grade team working with our current subs, well, not current subs, with her, and making sure that everything, we hope to have somebody by then. We're doing our best.
So will be done.
Well, she's currently in the class right now, until February.
Okay, go ahead.
I have the first limit in case there is no full-time person, there has to be a secondary plan, a backup plan. Do we have someone to consider, even as a long-term sub, to finish the year?
Yes, we've reached out to someone that could possibly be an interim sub for until we can finish the interview process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Socrates Foundation update. Mrs. President. Or Treasurer.
Do you want to comment, or we leave it on?
Go ahead, you can
Okay,
leave it off
so,
now.
as we discussed, we are looking at the acquisition of 1.6 acres adjacent to the current property the school owns, the foundation owns. This is owned currently by Image Church, and the negotiations are set to move forward. Closing is actually set for today, but per the contract, we have an additional 14 days before we have to settle up and have a check in hand from church. So at the moment, the fellows attorney is preparing the conveyance deed. Mr. Balcom is handling the rest of the closing paperwork that's needed. We are also looking at getting a certified check issued that's currently estimated to be around $306,000. And that breaks down to the purchase price of the land being $300,000 minus deposits of $3,000 going into it, a commission of 2.5% for $7,500, and then the attorney fees and title fees for $1,500. We've been working with Charlie to get that prepared and have all the funding in the right places to issue that check. So that should go through, we expect, within the next week. Alongside with that, we will also have a bill, I just want to go ahead and use this mention, for the Lawrences as part of this, for the Lawrence Associates as part of the surveying that's been done. So I do need to see if we can get that approved so that when it comes in, we can get them paid. It's estimated to be $2,100. So if I could get a motion
I'll
for
make
that.
a motion to approve.
Second?
As Board of Trustees.
What is the motion again?
It's to approve the payment for the surveyors invoice when it comes in.
I say.
Do we approve this?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then that can kind of, I think if you'd like to say the modulars in phase one,
You want to cover this too?
you have it on there, right? So I don't know if you're talking just the land there or,
What is it? We have the foundation, this,
The land doesn't need any-
I think we talked about it in town hall meeting about this,
Yeah,
right?
so you're
The
good.
modules, and we have talked about this.
Yeah, and also the cost breakdown too.
There's
so-
no court decision on that at this point.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah, board of directors or board of trustees?
Neither.
Neither, okay. So what, Socrates Foundation update about purchase of additional land?
The land is fine. The land is
And that land is coming from our.
I make a motion to purchase the land.
But that's already, I mean, we already made that
So
decision.
if you wanna,
We already made that decision to purchase the land, and we made an offer and everything, so that doesn't need any additional motions.
okay, so what do you want to approve here?
It's, I see there modular, phase one construction, I mean, all that sort of stuff that needs to be
Okay,
fleshed out.
what's your question?
My question? I don't have a question.
No,
I mean, we haven't
I make a motion,
approved it.
no, I'm not, it's the foundation. Is it the foundation that
No,
makes
no,
that
it's-
decision? I don't think so.
No, the board of directors has to make decision
And then
first.
also, okay,
Yeah,
and
so,
they have a motion, please,
for what?
for the modules in the,
I think we need to look at all the different items. Can you put them up, Mr. Item?
And
Then
this
from the PowerPoint or
From the
the,
cost breakdown, you can put it in there.
from the cost.
And this is in conjunction too with the loans coming up for refinance.
Yeah.
So we have to determine
So
what passes.
can you tell me what specifically you're looking for?
The phase one.
Is that from the PowerPoint we had today?
But
No, I sent you a
The other one was the
PDF
numbers.
with Myers and Chapman's cost breakdown, which is the largest item. And then we have about 575,000 from Bergman Engineering for clearing the land, and then the architect fees, so, which is about $7 million.
You're talking about what you sent in an email
Yeah.
today? Okay.
Yeah.
This
The
is,
PDF.
this is just what was in this file. It's in here. I would need to go in behind the scenes and log into my email up there.
Okay, yeah, that's what we need to proceed, so.
Don't know if I print a copy of that.
Maybe we can go and do something else while you're doing that. Larry, do you want to address another item until that is available? Go to the access grant maybe?
and not understand exactly what you're looking for. What you're looking for.
Not looking for anything, it's, we haven't approved the items,
Yes, well,
so we need to approve them.
and you want to know what?
No, there was a financial, analysis done about, phase one.
Okay, according to this one now, we're not moving, go ahead and,
We need to see it.
okay.
You just sent it today.
I'm gonna have to bring the jump truck to.
Yeah, I sent it to you on Tuesday night.
Larry, you may want to know.
Yeah, I'm going to, which is the grant. The next one is, I lost my, so this is, I left them somewhere. This one, I have one agenda, so you disappeared from me. Okay, thank you. The next item is letter of intent and application of North Carolina Access Grant Grade Project. Okay, we talk about it in the town hall meeting.
We have, who's leading that?
Who's leading that? Yes, that is led by accepting the board of directors and the administration. And the administration.
Okay, so we discussed this in the curriculum committee, and, as was presented.
Before you go on discussions, then we have a motion, and then second, and then discuss them up. So, we can have for or against, whatever, you know, that's the best way to go. Can we have a motion?
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve the access grant application.
Can I have a second, please? Can I have a second?
And then we'll mention tax.
Okay, discussion now.
Okay, so approving us moving forward with the Access Grant requires that we have an agreement on a direction for the grant. The grant requires that we increase the percentages of educationally disadvantaged students. As you heard earlier, there's 6 categories under that. The curriculum committee discussed, because our consultant was asking for direction because she has to write the grant, so we have to say what we're going to focus on. We don't have to focus on all 6. We can focus on one of the 6 categories. And if you recall, one of the 6 categories that was presented was English language learners. And I think Ms. Brighton made the case for why we believe that's the best possible scenario for the school. And I think there's 2 major points to make. One is that there's changes in demographics that we're already experiencing a little bit of them that are increasing the English language learners at the school that are likely to increase further. So no matter whether we decide to approve the grant and the required changes in the admission policy, the school is likely to face the increased number of English language learners anyway. At least the thinking is that at least the grant will give the school the resources and the funding to be able to best serve those students, because there are challenges that come with them. And the challenge of learning a new language. It's not the same kind of challenges for some of the other categories. So some of the special education is another of the categories, and economically disadvantaged is another of the categories. You know, each one of those categories has some special challenges. So the thinking was to go with that particular category, the English language learners. And because we believe that that's already happening, and because of the nature of the school and the emphasis on languages and multiculturalism, that's going to actually add to our goals to be a multicultural school. And also, as you heard, Davidson Day School, which another charter school that is very good, that has very good results, is already doing something similar, and they have good experiences. So the second point is that we believe that by opening up a little bit and being in a much stronger position to support the English language learners, we're going to benefit the whole school in the end. You know, there's some of the tools that are needed to deal with kids that don't speak English are very similar as dealing with kids that don't speak Greek or kids that don't speak Spanish later on that do require, or Chinese if they decide to go that way. And so that's going to benefit the whole school. So the recommendation from the curriculum committee is to move forward with a grant with an emphasis on English language learners. So if we decide to do that, the next step would be for the policy committee to make changes to the admission policy.
Is that the only thing you think, Tony, that we're going to go with just the English learners?
That's what the recommendation is. That is the recommendation of the curriculum.
Subcategory, yes, ma'am.
No, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make sure, I did talk to Katie on her way out. So if you decide to move forward with the grant, you would need to, like you're saying, you would need to revise your lottery policy. I review those and I help write those. And last year it was an option in the grant, I believe, to just do EL students, English learners. This year I just texted Jay, who directs the grant, to get a confirmation, but I'm 99% certain that for this next round of grants, you will have to do economically disadvantaged, and you can choose other subcategories. So if you go forward, for the sake of your discussion and understanding of the weighted lottery, you would need to make sure that you are weighting for economically disadvantaged students, which the qualifications vary, and that's something we write into policy. Maybe you use free and reduced lunch, maybe you use any students that qualify for SNAP. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can do it, but you would need to have economically disadvantaged and EL. You cannot just do, you can target them in like your marketing and things like that, but you also must target and wait for the economically disadvantaged.
Okay, so this is a new piece of information that we haven't heard before, so thanks for
Yeah, that's right.
getting us straight, because the consultant didn't tell us that, but
and I think last year they could do that, and that caused some problems, and so they changed that.
So, Ms. Brighton, can you give us the current state of the student body that we have today? What percentage fall into those two categories? And Ms. Baquero, if you can help us, what are we trying to accomplish? Whatever the percentages are that Ms. Brighton will tell us, are we trying to raise both of those categories? Some of them I imagine overlap, and what is our target? Are we trying to get to, I don't know if I heard 40% before, but is that our target for both of them?
I'm just reading the text from Jay, who directs he's in our office, who directs the program. Yes, so that I was correct. You have to do economically disadvantaged, and you can select other ones. The target is totally up to you guys. Mm-hmm. So obviously, it plays a little bit of part into your competitiveness. I mean, if you select 5% and a school is selecting 40%, it makes you less competitive.
Is it 5% net or 5% increase?
5% net. Or you can do an increase. It depends on how you write the policy. So do you have an idea of how many economically disadvantaged students you have now?
Yes, and so this is what is our challenge.
Okay.
Because what we understand is that we need to match or be more than the local LEA. Our current LEA is Mecklenburg County, but the way that a charter school is told to calculate their economically disadvantaged students is by putting it into the formula that you all have on the website for Title I funding. We put our population base. So we say we have 740 students. We put it in. We serve students from Mecklenburg County because our building's in Mecklenburg County. It calculates our percentage from our 740 to be, we're at 40, it currently says we're at 48% based on the calculation that the state gives us.
Okay.
Because we're told with federal funding to use that calculation with the county of the building that we serve. So then we are then matching the local LEA without having it in our admissions policy based on that calculation. If we were to hand out papers to 100% of our student population, our parent population, to ask, are you receiving, would you be eligible for economically disadvantaged status? If we gave them papers, if it was an accurate representation of the current population, we would be closer to 9% based on paper.
Okay.
But based on the calculation that we're told to use, it's skewed. So that's our biggest question is, so if we're told that we have to have a weighted lottery that includes an admissions piece of allowing economically disadvantaged students in, because our local LEA is approximately 40%, and with that calculation we're there, does our admissions policy say that we have to be at 40%, or if we say 5% the first year is going to be weighted to have economically disadvantaged of the total population? So if there's 100%, or let's say we do 5% or 10%, there's 100 slot, 10%, we'd have 10 students who are economically disadvantaged if their families could show the evidence and they decided to be a part of that lottery. Would we have to end up having a total of 40% in the actual policy? Or then once we do the calculation for our entire population of K-8, 740, and it ends up being larger just by increasing the admissions policy to be 10%, do we end up having to go 10, 20, 30, 40? Or can our admissions policy always be 10%?
Okay,
It's such a challenge to understand this concept.
Okay, yeah,
Because when you do actual paper and then you do the calculation we're given, it's different.
yes, and everybody, I would say that the state, everybody that deals with charter schools is aware of the difficulty in calculating correct ED populations. It's a federal issue, like people understand this. When you, like for example, on your school report card, do you know how many they say you have, like what your percentage would be on your school report card, even if it's probably lower than what your actual is?
Our current school report card reflects what the calculation, which would be 48.
Because it reflects CMS, you mean?
Correct, Mecklenburg County.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what your, like, just Socrates, like, if you, because sometimes if you pull up the school report card and it will, I would have it, but I don't have my work. So there's two ways to go about it. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say that you have 10% according to the state. Now, so in your policy, you can decide to say, in your grant application, you could say, our goal is going to be, there's two ways of doing it. You could say either our goal is going to be to have a probability of 20% ED and EL students. Or you could write the policy where you say our goal is going to be, you know, maybe you have a 5-year timeline. Some schools do this, where they mark out 5 years and they say that for the first year, we're going to do a 5% increase. Second year, we're going to do another 5%. So you like incrementally, slowly increase to a total of 40% or whatever you decide. Obviously, they look at the fact that you're in Charlotte Mech, but everybody also knows that Charlotte Mech is huge, and depending on where you are, the demographics are different. So that's also something that they're not, I don't think that it's like expected that you have to exactly look like, you know, match because you're in different areas. So you really want to think about, and it might be unrealistic. Like, I don't know anything about this area, so I don't know what the demographics are like, but you would know, you know, what are the realistic numbers you could get for ED and for like English learners. So you as a board, if you decide to go forward with this weighted lottery and this grant, would need to decide, you know, what is our target going to be? Are we going to increase by this amount each year, or do we want to just set there's a school that's opening next year in Charlotte in a different area, and they set a target of 60% economically disadvantaged. They will probably exceed that given the area that they're moving into. So it really, you know, it's a very school-specific thing. You have to think about your local demographics, who lives around here, you know, what draws students here, and what you think is the right amount for your school. So there's not a number you have to do. It's going to depend on your application and the other applications that come in and that sort of thing.
To have an additional question here. The other time we talked about it, we said that we have about 9% educational, students with special needs and 6% that kind of students. So
well, based on what Katie suggested, she suggested that it will be too ambitious to go immediately to 40%. So her suggestion was to use, as you mentioned, incremental increase and have a percent of increase because that's going to be easier to handle, and then we can also use the resources to support feasibility and sustainability, because at some point the money from the grant will disappear. So the goal is to make sure that we can sustain that support across time without sacrificing the quality. And that's the concern here. So that's why we thought that we'll go through incremental increases, make sure that we constantly support the sustainability of the changes. Now, based on the information that was shared by Bryson and the team, we had 9% economically disadvantaged, 6% students who are English learners, and 10% EC students. Now, of course, some of the numbers, they are they fall, some of the students fall in more than one category in there. So I think that the challenge that we need, not the challenge, but the decision we need to make is how do we define economically disadvantaged? And then, yes, we can work with DL, and that will be easier to define. So I think that we need to work on the definition to first, before we proceed to anything else, we need to decide as a group, how do we define EDs and within the area? Because again, it's within our area.
My question was like, we have the 15%, so we need 30%. I mean, we need more 20%, 25%. Not, since we have the
Really, what
it doesn't have any.
money.
No. What I'm saying, we should get 40 after 40%.
She said, no, there's no magic number.
We were led to believe that we would
We're
have
trying
to
to be
be
as
45
competitive as we can.
this year.
I have not heard that, as far as there being a target that you have to reach. You know, obviously, like I said, it's competitiveness. It makes, you know, if you're going, you don't want to be overly ambitious, but you also don't want to do, you know, oh, we're going to increase by 1%. And you're getting $1 million. So it plays into it, but there's not a magic number, and having, you know, I edit and, you know, work with the boards to revise the policies, it's all over the map. I mean, it just depends. Some schools say 25%, some increase 5% one year, 10% the next. I mean, it really is up to you. And it, you know, I would say right now would be, I would say what you need to really think about right now is, you know,
To go or not to go.
yeah, to go or not to go. Knowing that you will have to take into account economically disadvantaged, and if you want to use another educationally disadvantaged category, which can include those EC students, which can include the English learners, it depends on which you want to use. The policy part, you will not be drafting that tonight. That is something that you work with our office. There's a lot of requirements that go into it to make sure that it's up to like legal standards and statutory standards. So I would, if you go forward and you get the grant, that's what you would work with our office for. You just need to agree at this point, you know, do you want to move forward with the grant, knowing that you will have to have a weighted lottery and that it will have to include economically disadvantaged students. I think that's the most important
So I
thing
have a
for you to know.
question for Ms. Freida.
Okay.
Can you tell from the ED and EL students how much overlap is there between those two categories that we have right now?
I would need to look at,
Yeah.
I could
Because
compare.
if there's overlap 80% or 90%,
Right.
then it's something, we're talking about different numbers, as opposed to if those two groups are totally separate and we have to grow both of them,
Mhm.
that's a different kind of burden on the school.
Okay. And when,
And
so we asked the
combination,
question,
that may not be the best combination if we're thinking of ED and EL.
and,
It's not an overlap, I know.
No, if there's a lot of overlap, it would be a good combination.
Right.
Right, if it is an overlap, but we don't know if it is an overlap.
Yeah.
The definition of economically disadvantaged in my perspective was when I'm thinking of the EDS collection sheet. So to me, defining EDS is the sheet that is given to us by the state that was developed from No Child Left Behind, with like the two-person income of being less than 29. That's what we were thinking is economically disadvantaged, but you made it sound like we could define it in a unique way.
Yeah, you can define it in, I mean, to certain reasonableness, like you define how you're going to verify that. So in your policy, for example, some of my schools say if the, which is similar to the guidelines you're talking about, like the free and reduced lunch are the similar guidelines, you know, it gives you an income for total number of people in the household. You look at the number of people in the household and what the income would be, whether they qualify. You can use that. You can use just any evidence of being on benefits, whether it's SNAP, whether it's whatever, anything. So you can make it kind of narrow, or you can make it broad. You need to think about the parents that you're going to be getting, and whether also, like, this is an optional thing. So parents have to opt in to doing the weighted lottery and providing this information. And you cannot ask for the information before the lottery. So you conduct the lottery, and then let's say you get these kids in, then you verify that they actually are either economically disadvantaged or whatever other category.
But I don't understand that. So how would you give them priority? Isn't that what they're trying to?
Yeah.
What they're saying, how would you give them priority if you don't know who they are?
I mean, honestly, you're basically going on, like, you're going on faith that they are correctly stating they're economically disadvantaged, and when they sign that, form that, yes, we want to opt in, on that form it will say, upon acceptance and enrollment, you will need to provide information verifying whatever your income or whatever you're deciding to look at.
Similar to say, when we say you have to be able to have evidence that you live in North Carolina.
Right, right. You don't want to do it beforehand because, depending on how many kids you get that are opting in, you might have, you don't need that information.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Say we have 100 spots for kindergarten, or for kindergarten, and 80 of them are siblings. We have 80 siblings, let's say.
Yeah.
Which it happens a lot of times.
Yeah.
So are we talking about this preferential admission policy for the other 20? Or is the number, maybe some of those 80 are already ED or EL? Or are we talking about the percent for the whole group?
You're talking about
Let's say our target was we want 10 ED students, 10%, let's say. And there's already 10 in the group of siblings. Is that good?
Well, I don't know about that. The other thing is, how would you know that those siblings?
Well, the same way you would know. I don't know. Somehow we'll find out.
Yeah.
That's we would.
If it's a sibling, you have that income sheet that gets allowed.
I mean, that gets a little difficult just because I don't know if you always collect income information. That's not something that's always collected unless you have, all your kids are all doing free and reduced lunch.
But if there's a sibling and the sibling is already ED, we would assume that the other sibling is going to be ED as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking for a goal, target number. So if you're making 10% and you already have 10% of students that are ED, it's not going to be competitive for your grants because you're not increasing that amount, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't know how many we have right now, but I mean, let's say we have 10 and we decide, okay, we're going to go to 20.
Yeah.
And there's 20 in that group of 80 that are siblings. I'd say we're hitting the target.
That question though, if there's 20 spots, so in this scenario, there's 20 spots available, so we're looking at 40% of those 20 spots? Or is it 40% of your whole?
It's the whole population.
The school does collect income information from the parents, and if it was a sibling, then you would already have that from the student who's already here, and if you didn't have income information, how does she have her numbers?
Yes.
So it does exist, especially if it's a sibling coming in.
Good, beginning of school year, you fill it out.
So,
because some of the parents, I think, if I read between the lines of some of the comments, were concerned that does that mean that you're going to take 30 spots now and only have 70 left for the siblings? That means 10 siblings will be out.
We're concerned about a lot more than that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
that was one thing.
Volunteerism in the school may be great.
What I want to say here is if we go ahead and say, yes, we go ahead, we do have the time to inquire while we're writing this application to stop not doing. Is that right? We send in the law, the LOI, the law, letter of intent right now. Okay.
March is the deadline, I think, to
March 31st,
right?
March 31st is the deadline to submit the application. So, but the thing is, can't be said that we have to approve it tonight or not. I mean, we have to make.
To approve it tonight so that you can start writing it. Otherwise, it's not
so that's right. So
you can start writing it. How much is it going to cost us? Because if
we've already approved her contract to write the grant.
Right. So
you might as well write.
So we can give her a go-ahead and then collect some more data, the actual numbers, figure out what our targets are going to be, and then we can still stop it next month.
She has the allocation.
But you can still stop it
But
next
6
month.
months are for us, she wants from us
She
now.
has to present it to us before she submits.
I understand, but she wants from us now to make a decision and what kind economically disadvantaged.
But we can't make a decision without data, Larry. We can't pull stuff from the air.
Okay.
Right, and the point that she made was that, and that's the discussion we had at the curriculum committee, we need to have a very clear argument of why we select a specific subgroup. So we need to be very clear and have a very clear and compelling argument for why. And Katie kindly explained that last year there were 2 applications, this year there will be 20 applications. So we need to know the why we do it, and the numbers will help, because based on the information that was shared with us last time, we already have the numbers for AC. So we are not going to be competitive saying that we are increasing the numbers on AC. But based on what was shared, we were competitive for economically disadvantaged and EL. But we need to have the numbers to make that decision. And it seems that we don't have that yet. So, Ms. Brighton, when do you think that you could provide us with that?
Tomorrow.
You could review the data.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
The other thing that I
And then,
want,
if we,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just was just about to say one more thing. In order to better support that argument, because last time it was very quickly that this was stated. Is it possible, once we have the numbers for the subgroups within the school, to then draft a paragraph for that argument? Because I'm sure after she can extend it. Can we do this and then provide it to her? And then within our group, to make sure that we all have a good understanding of what is it that makes this a compelling case? Because, again, that was what we discussed at the curriculum committee. It's great to have the funds, but we need to know why. And I care a lot about the sustainability of something. There is a working grant, and once the money left, if you don't have a sustainable program, then you have a problem. So,
Okay, and
I also
we
wanted,
took,
because people were asking about why we have the EDS form, so, and then what you were saying about the school asking, if obviously we used to have to use them because it was the only way of receiving that information. But as a charter school, when we write the application, the things that we have to have are plans. So our plan for helping students who can't afford lunch was, for instance, if their family had turned in one of those forms, and those forms are in our beginning of year forms, but they're optional, they're not mandatory. We don't go around and say, you didn't turn your form in, you didn't turn your form in. But we use that for like our lunch brigade, or like when students can't afford a field trip. We're using those as how we could say, you know what, they did turn in a form, that's somebody who would qualify, because that's how we can do it locally within the school. Otherwise, if we're using that calculation that the state gives us, it doesn't tell us who. So we can't tell who. So that's why we continued to make it an optional turn-in, because then that's the evidence that we have to say, you know what, we are going to support you with the lunch brigade. We are going to ask CFI to help with the funding for the field trip. I just want to make that point made to people who ask, like, well, why do you collect them? What are you using it for? And that's the reason.
I think we have to move, but I just remember that Katie said that we have to have this decision tonight because we don't have time for a decision later on.
The
But I'm
category
okay.
decision or the category that they want to target.
Oh, okay, so what should we do with
The
that?
suggestion from the curriculum committee was to do EL, based on what we heard, that's not enough. So, I mean, to give her go ahead, we would have to say EC plus EL.
So our decision concerns.
Not EDS,
Kate,
the
Economically disadvantaged.
Our decision concerns Katie's support to her to go ahead. It's not something to do with the grant, with the government grant, with the federal grant. Is that right? So we can make a decision tonight, we can make any decision or postpone the meeting, but we have to have another, of course, special meeting to discuss, to approve the matter. So, what do you think is the word?
The motion. Well, the motion is to proceed with give direction to the grant writer to write the grant to address economically disadvantaged and English language learners.
Okay.
That's the first part. And give direction to the policy committee to draft a proposal for how the admissions policy will change.
Here's the motion. You make the motion, okay? Can I have a second?
Well, wait, hold on, because you had a motion before that launched the discussion, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
I don't remember what.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
Michelle's motion to approve the NC acquisition.
Right.
So I guess that motion be.
I'll take that off the table now to say more specific.
Okay. So Adonis make the,
So, I have a question, sorry. So the question is about the second part that, Dr. Sciarra just mentioned. Isn't that the specifics about the way that the lottery will work? Isn't that after, in order to have the grant, and that's when you will be working with your charter schools?
Yes.
Why should approve it now, the policy, when really, what we should really worry about is the subcategories that we're working with, the subgroups we're working with, because it's not just, again, I'm going to say the same thing I was saying at the curriculum committee, it's not just getting the grant, it's making sure that we have sustainability and we are continuously increasing and improving the quality of our education. So I would feel comfortable knowing what are the percentages that we have at the school, and then go ahead and give the okay. Because if we don't have that percentage, we approve this for what? I mean, can we say pending?
So, Zoe, this is just so that she can proceed with the writing of the grant. We're giving her some direction to start writing the grant. If we wait until next month, it's going to be too late for
That's
her.
not what she's saying. She's talking about the second part that you
The
mentioned.
second part, you're right. So what the direction is to the policy committee is to draft a proposed change in the admission policy that would take effect if we get the grant. Does that make sense? But we have to write it into the grant.
Right. Well, no, you don't have to write the policy into the grant. No. Why would you do that? Why, if you don't get the grant approved, that policy is null and void.
Right.
I would suggest though, since there are samples at the Office of Charter Schools, if it would be possible to share some of those ideas of how exactly to do the lottery. Because why try to design a policy when others have designed something similar and we can get at least an idea. So I still would think that the first goal is to approve that we will proceed with the NC grant. Again, I would say pending the information for the specific focus that this grant will have, the information that Ms. Bryden will share tomorrow.
So
yes,
let me.
But we need to know what is the subgroups we're targeting.
Yeah. So Zoe and John, since you asked, I don't know what the requirements of this grant are. It might be that the grant, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it might be that the grant requires that you propose an admission policy, because it's all about the admission policy, basically.
No, I haven't seen the grant application this year, but last year that was not the case. You don't have to have the policy.
Right.
Also, I will say that, if you decide to move forward, our office does provide a lot of guidance, and I can provide you sample policies, and we walk you step by step through the policy making. So that is not what I would worry about right now. You have to decide, do you want to go forward with the grant?
Okay, so let me just change my motions. So then the motion is to give direction to the grant writer to proceed by writing a grant application targeting those two groups. Period.
this is already given to him as a.
No, she asked for direction.
But she would have more production with everybody, so she can do the best.
No, she asked for direction.
What she said was very clear, that she can write the grant. However, we need to be very clear in what subgroups we are going to target.
Right, please, I'm sorry. Let's make the motion. Repeat the motion again.
So who's deciding the subgroups? So are we
are.
directing her to write the grant with English learners and economically disadvantaged.
Right.
Yeah, the
we
proposal from the
just-
curriculum
right,
committee
that's our
was the
decision.
English learners, from what we heard tonight, that's not enough. We have to have as a minimum.
And so I feel like we're wanting to move forward because we've already paid her to do this. If anyone looked at our contract with her or talked with her about, what if we tabled this to next year? Could the funds work for her writing
Yes,
this next
she
year?
said that, she said.
Because in, for instance,
Or for any other grant.
my concern, I'm not prepared to vote yes on expanding to a high school, expanding to English learners, and expanding to economically disadvantaged all in the same year. And so if my ultimate vote is a no, I would hate to see us waste $5,000 when it's the Harrison decided issue. Now maybe that should be a
It can be for the next year or any other grant.
But not if we direct her to start writing now. She will have worked her hours and she'll want a new $5,000.
That's right, so we have to make a decision.
Well, the rationale initially was just including economic disadvantage. That was brought to the discussion in the curriculum committee. But then when we looked at the numbers that we have on second language learners, the request that we had as a board to bring faculty in that they are specialized in second language, that's why we said, why not shift it to include second language learners? Because already we're getting an increase in the numbers, so we need to be better equipped. And we will have professional development, we will have the resources and the tools needed. So if the numbers are adequate, I think that this is a good route to take, economically disadvantaged and EL. And someone's trying to say something now that I see someone here.
Just when you're done.
This is from 221, 220, from the next year, it's not for this year. This is for the next year,
Right,
220.
But it's
for
the same year as
for
high school.
Rotary for next year, February 29, 221. It's not for this year, next month.
2021, right,
Right.
right.
I just wanted to say that in the town hall, when we had a chance to speak, there were some concerns parents had about ED that were not voiced when it was presented as EL only. So if you do decide to proceed with ED, I would suggest that parents have a chance to voice the concerns that they had regarding that subgroup, because we did not get a chance to speak on that.
Parents, but we had 3 parents there that spoken.
But we thought it was
We didn't
basic.
know.
We thought it
told you
was
supposed to
only,
be done.
Right.
we thought it was only for the.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys
so
said it.
that's all yeah, I think it
Don't
sounds,
do it.
well, no,
Here's,
I'm trying to be,
It's
it
bad.
sounds like,
here's my concern,
okay.
is that, and I think we touched on it briefly in the town hall meeting, and we haven't talked about it tonight or in here yet, but how will this impact the culture of the school, and moving forward? Also, if we go with English as students who are non-English speakers, how is that going to impact our mission of teaching, of being a Greek immersion school? Are they going to be learning English and Greek on top of whatever their native language is? How is that going to impact what we're trying to do? Okay, and that's my concern, and I really don't like being pressured by any kind of deadline to make a decision. And if that's the case, then I'm not prepared to vote for this grant.
But we already did.
So, I think
We
that
already-
I might answer the
We already
first part.
gave her a contract.
What?
I'm sorry, what was that, Zoe?
The point he's making is a valid one. I will try to answer the first part. And I will speak as an educator. I believe in equity, and I think that this is the school of equity. And we as a school, we need to really care about our citizens and the preparation of our citizens. So if we really work with the purpose of supporting students who are not children of privilege, let me say it like that, I think that's a very noble cause, and that serves our mission. We are a school of innovation, we are a school of leadership, and I think that's a very noble cause. So I would be very proud serving actually for that cause, because I do believe strongly in equity, not in equality, in equity. So we will have a chance to give to all our students what they have not been provided in the social realm as that is. So I think that I'm not concerned about that part. I think that I've worked with schools that beat me out because when education is provided when it's high quality instruction, students grow. And I have no doubt that we can support students. We can support subgroups and close the gap. I am very confident on this. Now, about the second part, that is where we will provide professional development. That's where we will have the instruction will be different. Culturally, though, I think that will be a benefit for us because that's the school we are. We are not an isolated school that works only with our people. I don't see it like this. I don't see us like that, at least.
And I think I agree completely with equity as a goal. I think my concern as a parent, I think some of the parents I've talked to, the concern is I don't know that we're adequately serving our current population to now bring on and plan to serve a new population. For instance, our AIG students don't get enough AIG. I think our EC students, perhaps there's challenges in serving them, so we're not 100% serving our current population. I think we do our current population a disservice, and I think we do our new students a disservice if we can't meet those needs. And so my concern is not the goal of equity. Absolutely, that's the goal to have. But again, looking at AIG, there's no reason that they're going to AIG like 2 days a week.
We just got AIG where it ought to be and where it should have been.
And it's still not even where it needs to be.
It's not, but it's a whole lot better.
So that's the concern, is if we're not properly servicing our current population, how do we bring on a new demographic and say that we're going anybody in service?
And at what point does anybody discuss, obviously you want a grant because there's money. Duh. You see dollar signs, that's great. But how much of the money is going to benefit the rest of the school and how much of it is going to be spent to make sure that the new population we're bringing in gets what they need? I agree they should get what they need. But does that make the money like hardly worth it anymore?
And
that's what we were saying before, is that there are synergies, and bringing this, increasing the percentage of English language learners in the school, which we already have some, and that demographic is going to increase. And so the money will help address the needs of the existing students and the new students, and it will help, you know, the other students that are struggling or the teachers that don't have enough tools, you know, to deal with the Greek language or the Chinese language or the Spanish. You know, so there's a lot of synergies. So.
And I also wanted to add,
we have the increase. That was the rationale. Regardless, we do have this increase yearly. So the goal is to try to proactively use this grant, this funding, to better equip the school. That was the rationale. That's why it was brought initially to the board.
and if I do the math, we had 27 out of, I believe, 75 new students as English language learners this year. So we accepted 36% English language learners this year. We haven't looked at the numbers to compare if those were also economically disadvantaged because that wasn't something we were looking at, although you've asked me to look at those and compare, and I will. So I just want to speak to the fact that we accepted almost 40% English language learners this year because that's what is happening at the state no matter what. I also want to say that we have a partnership with the Greek government, and we have teachers who come with children who have never learned English before. And we have taken those kids in, and we have seen the most amazing results. So I know that you say, you know, there are, what are we going to do with students who don't speak English? Well, we already do it. And we're doing it really well, and I think that if we actually looked at numbers and we looked at cases and we could point that out to you, we do a really good job. I do think we need additional funding, and the state is showing that, and that's why, for instance, I participated in the Thomas Collier book study, because we're seeing it and we need help and we need professional development, but we also need resources, and resources take money. So this is killing, I don't want to say killing because I'm going to say a positive way, this is affecting us with
There are synergies. There are synergies. And by the way, some of our past experience, some of the same students that you're talking about, whether they came from Greece and didn't speak any English, were also AIG students.
Yes, yes.
You know,
I was better with that one subset than with two.
Well, we don't have
Some
a
people
choice,
make
right?
the
I know, but
assumption
that's why
that-
I now am not so okay.
I'm sorry. Some people make the assumption they hear about these categories and they make the assumption that these are gonna be bad students.
No, I was better with the language. I was like, okay, I like language better than the whole 6, right? But I am less comfortable with the second subset from a parent's point of view. And like just a random thought, it may also drastically drop volunteerism, which the PFIs worked real hard to raise, and we've done well. It may also, if these are kids who are living in different parts of town or coming from single-family homes, and that's why they're part of that subset, is because they have a parent who's working constantly, which is amazing for their family, but volunteerism may fall. That's part of our charter too. So there are just a lot of ways that this could really affect us, and I think we should look at them all.
I think we have plenty of time.
Can I ask one more question? As part of the grant writing process, will she address the issue that Zoe brought up about sustainability?
Yes, that's part of the grant. That means there is a plan on budget and there is a plan on feasibility that is part of the grant.
Okay, all right.
So the question is, we already approved her writing the grant, we approved the contract.
Right.
Last time, and now we have more information even. I don't know at this point, if we don't make this decision tonight, I don't know if we can back out of the contract.
Well, Larry just said that if we don't approve going ahead with the grant, that she has agreed, I guess verbally, to him,
she said
that money will go to her writing another grant, or if we postpone it till next year,
That's
she'll do
her specialty, you mean write the grant next year?
Right, or
What
write
will
this-
change?
Huh?
What will change?
She's a
Well,
grant.
like, for instance, we just got word of a different grant that our school could also be.
Or she can,
She's a grant writer, so she can write other grants.
Write them out
So the contract is writing one grant, whichever grant that
Yeah,
is.
you can.
These specific grants become more and more competitive because everyone is getting the message that we need to increase based on North Carolina policy. So everyone is trying to be ahead of the game, and they're trying to write this grant because they see that if you read the reports, the last reports on charter schools, the big issue is lack of diversity. That's the big issue, and the fact that they don't serve students who are economically disadvantaged. So there is a big push from the state for charter schools to follow, and that's why she said that if you don't apply this year, last year there were 2 applications. This year there will be 20 applications. Next year, I don't know how many there will be. So it's really a decision to make, because if we wait for later down the road, maybe we won't be able to get that as easily. Anyway, it's never easy to get a grant, but I'm saying this may not be as easy.
Another thing we have to take into consideration here, you don't know next year that the state, the North Carolina State Board of Education, or wherever the state, change the rules and regulations of governing the charter schools, and they may say, listen, you want to be a charter school? Yeah, you can stay as a charter school, but you have to do this, 20%, 30% of that, without giving you any money for doing this. It is a trend already. Universities, as I said the other time with the article that I mentioned, universities right now, UNCC exactly, UNCC where they got $25 million, UNCC, in order to help the economically disadvantaged students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so these kids can graduate, if they are disadvantaged economically, graduate and give them money to their families so they can go ahead college-wise or get to another route, I can say career readiness, and help them to certify to get the certificate and get a job right away. That's what the trend, the future trend is all about right now.
And another thing to keep in mind is that while we're talking, our numbers are increasing anyway.
Right. So, and we again, the challenge is this year you were asking for faculty on second language, and this year we could not afford that. So I think that we need to be proactive. So I'm not worried about how it will be handled, because I know that it is something that will be handled and can be handled. I just want to make sure that we know the subcategories clearly, that the numbers are in place. That's what I'm asking. Other than that, I am applauding the effort. Again, this this is what we serve in education. We don't serve education for the few. We serve all children.
Dumbing down the education.
Has anyone talked
Dumbing
about
down.
the Charlotte Lab or the Davidson School? So for instance,
She has, I think, yeah, Katie, the grant writer has.
I had a conversation with a colleague of mine whose son goes to Charlotte Lab, and I said, you know, how are you pleased with the school? I mean, what can you tell me about the demographic? And of course, he's like, why yes? And I'm like, well, I think, you know, maybe they have a weighted lottery that weights for economically disadvantaged. And he says, well, that makes perfect sense. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I wonder why last year I noticed a boom of students that didn't necessarily look or act like my son. Okay, fine, no big deal, great for diversity. But then my son came home and started talking about all the fights in the bathroom and the bullying. And now it makes sense that they are weighted for this category of student. And so I just want to know, have we talked to administration at Charlotte Lab and Davidson to see, have they seen that? What are they doing about that? I mean, what can you see from that?
Well, I actually went to Charlotte Lab a couple weeks ago, but their weighted lottery was that they wanted 45%, and they did that immediately. They don't have a stagger. They didn't start in a specific grade. They wanted.
If they have enough students, they wanted to have students.
And that was the mission of their school. They wanted to reflect the urban population in their charter school that's located in downtown Charlotte. So that's different in our mission. And like Ashley said, that we would weight ours based on our population and what the mission and what the goals of the school are, which would look different than, you know, the urban downtown Charlotte Lab School. Davidson, I have spoken with her many times from years ago, but Katie also reached out. Now, they have the weighted population, but they don't get that many applicants because of the location. Again, it's all dependent upon where you are. So even though we have it in our lottery, if people don't apply, they don't apply. But those are the checks and balances that the state is, like through this, they were talking about the principals would be monitored, and this would be monitored to make sure that, first of all, we're doing it, that we're asking, and then we are admitting the obvious results of, well, maybe it's our location, even if we were to ask 40% overnight. So it really depends on the school, but Davidson is not getting the ones that the amount that they have asked for. Lab is getting increases, but they want to increase more. I mean, that's their goal.
So I'm on the Davidson Day website, and I think it might help to, if I read to you this, if you indulge me for a minute. It says, in accordance with the revised CSD lottery policy, the board will determine the number of lottery openings to be reserved for students who qualify for free or reduced lunch. This determination has not yet been made by the board for the 2020-2021 school year. Due to high enrollment numbers in grades 3 to 7, we do not anticipate any openings being reserved at those grade levels for qualifying students. For grades K2 and A through 12, we anticipate one more slot per grade level potentially being reserved. So,
wow.
They're not talking about
well, because they're
the
retaining students, so they're, you know, it's just they're just not getting it.
But before reading this, I didn't understand. I thought we were going to have a policy and that's going to be flat for all grades, but apparently not. They're not less grades, right?
But if you bring them in kindergarten and your goal is to retain as many as possible for the sake of the language and the culture, you bring them in kindergarten, your hope is to keep them, so then it goes across all grades.
We were not trying to target kindergarten. We were trying to target whole.
Well, no, but I mean, that's where you get all your students from, is because there's nobody coming from preschool that we don't have in the kindergarten. You get all 100 brand new students.
Whereas what we're talking about are very specific of the policy. So if you want to say 40% of your income in kindergarten, you're talking more students. If you say 40% of your open enrollment K-8, you're talking fewer students.
I think we have to talk about it. We spend a lot of time. We spend time on everything. Please, what you want to do? You want to make a motion? What is the motion? If we have a second. If we have a motion, and we don't have a second, let's take, I mean, let's go ahead.
We have two options.
Yes.
One option is to tell her, continue writing the grant for these two categories that we discussed. The other option, we decide today, tell her, okay, scrap it, put everything on hold, and you know, we
We
don't want to do
don't,
that
we don't
anymore.
go over next year.
They're
We don't
not
go
going
over
We got a motion on the table to approve, her writing the grant based on those two criteria.
Exactly, and then we're still gonna have next month, before she submits it, before the school submits it, we're still gonna have it in front of us to approve it or not.
Right. Well, I'll second it.
So make clear what is the motion. You got it?
So, a motion to give direction to the grant writer to address economically disadvantaged students and English learners and start writing the grant. Is that
Okay.
Yes, yes.
The second?
Zoe,
So I think-
Zoe. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
opposed?
Aye, huh? How many we have?
And you have to vote.
Yeah, aye.
Again?
Ask for those against.
All against, yeah. All against, please, all, okay.
And,
And how many we have? 41.
no, those were neutral.
Neutral, opposed?
No, only one opposed.
And then abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain.
You want-
Yeah, abstain. No, I'm,
He's opposed. Approved.
okay.
So 4-1.
So for?
4-1, it's
4-1,
approved.
that's
So
what I
we go
said, yeah.
forward, and it's gonna come back next month, and
Right.
we'll look at it again.
Okay.
You know, because right now, we're committed, you know, the $5,000 for the grant writer that we already have a contract with, all right?
Yes.
So
So
it's
just to,
it's not that, it's the fact that it is a good cause, and I don't know who the lady at the back is, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, and I feel very sensitive with names, but the point you made about how this is gonna be done is part of the grant. So if we say 20% from kindergarten, this is gonna look very different from 20% K-8. So this is part also in the grant. All these details that you're asking about, are very valid questions, and that they are gonna be part of this. So it's not gonna be a decision, when you write grants of that amount, you need to be very, very detailed in everything and where everything is gonna go. So they don't take, that's why they're very competitive.
Okay,
So all these questions you're asking, these are excellent questions, and I'm glad we had this conversation. We should be having this type of
We get more information, from other schools as well. And we, as we go, we decide. Let's move to the next item, please. We have, let's go to the, letter of intent application, okay, that's a grant. E-rate funding, no modules? Yes, hey, okay. Purchase of additional land modular,
I think we're
phase one construction. So can I have a motion here to, go ahead and make a motion for the, what your question was about the modules? Install the modules and, okay?
Let me add some color to this, just I'm getting so close to this. So months ago, when I joined, we had a quote to build the entire thing, which was ranged between 13 and 25 $million. We said, wow, okay, that's, yeah. So we broke it up in phases to make the high school a reality. And then we said, well, maybe we can do ninth grade next summer. Do we still have time? So we rushed, got this together, put another plan that addressed some of the pains, like using the carpool, the playground, and adding modulars because we couldn't afford the entire building. So we had to do it with modulars so we can then get the students, which increases the income, and then slowly we can build the 10th grade in 2 years and then build the building and move everybody in the building. We'll have the extra modulars for extra space for other things. So this is the quote that I received on yesterday night, which is for phase one, which you all saw in the presentation today, and it's a total of $7 million essentially. It's 6.4 for Myers and Chapman. This is one of the engineering firms.
Plus the cost of the.
Yeah, plus 475 from Burton Engineering, which is most of the clearing the land and all that, and fixing the grading and putting retention ponds and all that, because we have to put a retention pond on the ground, on the playground. It's the only space we have.
What about the cost of the modulars themselves?
That's included in here, and the cost of it's not in here, it's in the 475. It's
Paid, you're talking about paid, not leasing them. Paid.
paid, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
where is the?
so Borough Engineering did not give me a formal quote, they gave me an email, it's $475, includes the modulars.
But why would Burton Engineering bill us for the modulars themselves? That's not their specialty. I mean, they're just.
That's what they gave me because Myers and Chapman did not give me the modulars.
Yeah,
And then we have
they're not a modular company, so why would they?
Yeah, we actually, they give me a quote as an idea, we don't actually have a quote for modular.
We can go with different modular centers, we can go for free modulars from other Union County, things like that.
Yeah, so we don't have a formal quote for modulars, it was an estimate that they gave me because it wasn't on this one.
Especially for the bank as well.
And they gave it to
Even
me.
for the bank as well.
And then there's like $37,000 for the architect, which will give us renderings by February, March, so we can actually do a fundraising with an actual 3D rendering.
If it's too high, we can do it for much less, in a way. Let's say for the playground, they don't take into consideration if we have donation coming, for the tilted track or whatever. Anyway.
This is estimates they've given that
This-
we
Especially,
should have with.
that's
Yeah,
it.
and the bigger question is, are we gonna have ninth grade in August, or are we not? And this is the cost attached to that ninth grade.
So, yeah, so that's exactly what I had in mind. So first we have to decide whether we're going to add a ninth grade this year. Because if we're not, then we need to entangle these costs to take out the cost of the modulars and whatever, and focus more on clearing the land and the driveway and, you know, the soccer field and so on.
Let me add that there is one more shade to this, and that is that the loan renewal for the BB&T comes due March 19th, and we are at the absolute wire to give them a decision on what we're going to do, whether we refinance a straight refinance, whether we refinance with a 12-month extension to give ourselves time, or whether we refinance with the request to include additional debt that they may or may not approve.
For the such a long, a high, no.
And they have, if we choose to do that, they have to have this information and an answer within a day or two.
And the number of enrollment.
There's no time left on this.
The number of enrollment as well.
So the first step is to talk about expansion to high school to ninth grade this year.
Yes.
Okay, so we've done some work on curriculum, and last time around, we had some work on the cost for a ninth grade, and we had a financial plan for 10 years. I don't recall.
Yes.
I don't know, Sandy.
It was about 60 years.
It was in that spreadsheet, yeah. So, for me personally, the parent asked the question tonight, you know, creating a high school is not just about the buildings and the land and the driveway. We need to know what the operational cost of the high school is going to be, right? And
you find out.
No, wait, let me finish. And so, no, we've done this some time ago, things have changed, the numbers have changed. And so I want to know what is the financial plan for the high school, and I want to know what is our break-even point, even from the state. You know, what are we going to need for the high school? We're going to need 3 full-time teachers, 5 part-time teachers, whatever it is that is, the school counselor, the principal, you know, all those things, right? And then have all those costs, and what is the break-even point? Can we break even with 35 students? Do we need 50? Do we need 70? You know, I would like to know that information before I feel comfortable with saying yes or no. I mean, all in all, I would like for us to go to high school. I'm just not sure if we have this.
I understand, Antonio. You made your question. You have the knowledge to do this.
No.
To have done it. One minute, let me say.
I don't only have the knowledge. I want you to share it with the whole board.
And we said we can share it. We asked this many years ago to do it, and last summer also this way. And here we are again, the last minute, saying we don't have the number. We brought all the numbers we wanted here. These people worked so hard to make it happen.
Larry, it's irrelevant. What you're saying, it doesn't matter. The point is, Where is the financial
Thank you.
plan?
Okay, anybody else? We have to make a motion, first of all, because that's my last thing to think about. But I would like to have a motion here, to go for a high school, and with a number of students we can go. Make a motion, we have a high school, start at the 9th grade.
Well, my understanding is that we, based on the parent survey, we do have the numbers to go. So my
Yes,
understanding
we do have,
that
but we
my
don't.
understanding is that financially we can afford it.
Yeah, and we can go farther up to 60 persons if we want to have really a surplus in our budget, so we don't have any impact on the school. So what I'm here, that's why I urge you and the town board meeting also, you know, I'm tired of doing 5 years doing the same thing from so many things.
Personal interval, I think that the question that Dr. Steele is asking about questions.
But
But if the numbers are as we see them, I don't think that the numbers won't work.
The numbers was 35%. 35% of 75 is 26 students. So we could be talking as few as 26 students. Could be more, you
Which
know.
I would think it would be a bad thing moving to
But
9th
we
grade
have-
with 30 students, because then it's even better. I mean, another charter that we all know very well just moved with less than 22 students for 9th grade.
Yeah. Zoe, I understand what you're saying, but where is the financial plan? Yeah, these are the old ones, but it hasn't been updated.
I have no idea, 1 minute.
I don't want you to tell me, I want a financial plan
Yeah.
to see this many students this year, this many students next year, this many
We
students
have
the year
this.
after.
I gave it to you, I have it here, I sent it to you.
No,
We
not
have
just the number of students. You know, you have a cost per student, you know, and we're gonna need to hire teachers for all of
Of course.
this, right?
Teachers, administrator, whatever.
Right.
We need, yeah, of course.
Well, what's the plan?
So-
There needs to be a financial plan.
So when I'm asking you, and you told me before you go to Christmas, before go, I don't have the time. I asked you in the summer to do this with me.
I didn't do
and I
this
didn't
last
want-
time. It was several people who were involved to do this.
We can do this within this month. We can do this week. We can do it tomorrow, we can do it the next. I called about 3 people down here, I called some other, and we can do this, okay? But the most important thing is, we to do the plan with 40 people or to 60 people. 40 or 60, or 30, whatever it is. I think the best way to go is to have the 30 students, there may be 40 from here, if they learn that we're going for high school, not only 30, they may go to 40. You see, this is a town hall meeting tonight. You know, they know that the board will do the best they can for them, you know, 3 people came and spoke, you know, about the thing here is here. We want to go, the most important question for me is, we want to go for 40 students or with 60 students? The best thing, let me finish please and then you speak, because I cannot wait anymore. I can't stop. This is my last night. I'll tell you one thing, Zoe, what I want to say. You want to go with 40 students or with 60 students? I think the best way is, if we have already 30 students, they say there, we can go with 50 students, we open the school outside, get some more 20 students, or we don't open the school at all. And even if we don't open the school, even if we have 30 students, we can make it. Because even if the budgets from the local and the state don't work, these people that I brought in tonight, okay, they have guaranteed that they support the school, the operating budget of the high school, and they don't have, this will be the founders of that, they won't have any impact on the rest of the KH school. So the money is there, the budget is there. What we have to do is to find out how many teachers we want, full-time, part-time, or whatever, assistant or whatever we want to do.
And Mr. Burles, we will work that out in the curriculum committee, because if we are moving in September, we said that we need to start hiring now.
Yes, of course, that's very important too as well.
I am in favor of working with, not with 60 and not opening outside. I would rather we work with the students we have, to continue with the group we have, because then if we will have other challenges to face with outsiders entering in 9th grade, I would be in favor of the 30 or 40 with the students we currently have moving from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Matthias, can we accommodate 60 students in the modules?
Yeah, and I just have one more caveat to add to this. If we commit to do this with modulars, the modulars, you will be either a 6 or an 8 class module. So if we commit to this, we have to build the building in 2 years. We won't have space for a 11th grade.
That's right. Yes.
So if we commit to this 7 million, there's gonna be another 6, at least, coming in a year and a half.
I also want to add that our K-5 expansion said that in 2 years we're out of space. We don't have space for a fifth grade. We don't have space for a fourth grade. Where are those going to go? So I just want to make sure, right, we don't have the space after 2 years for K-8.
To me, last time we had this conversation, we decided no because of the financials. And
no, that's not for the finances. I can stop you.
It was primarily because of the financials. So it's inconceivable to me that we're here tonight being asked to vote and we don't have the financials in front of us. I want to see a financial plan. This is not about dreams or aspirations. I am in support of Socrates Academy going into high school. I have been in support of that all along, but I cannot commit. It's a business decision. The majority of the charters that fails because of financial issues. If we don't have a financial plan, I don't think
to me is to tell me how many students you want to have here on the 9th grade. 30, 40, or 60, and I give you the financial plan tomorrow night.
We'll give it and then we vote.
Okay.
Give it and then we
You're
vote.
going to have a special board of director meeting called to vote? Okay, what we're going to have a motion right now, right now to go ahead to open the 9th grade, and we decide according to the financial plan that we present, we decide if we go for 40 or 50 or 60. That's what I want. I want you to decide that this year, 2020, in August, since the engineers here, the other people, guarantee that the first phase will be ready, so we have the things ready, so we want this year to start. Otherwise, it won't start next year. It won't start from 2 years from now, or 3 or 4 years, or until I die. So I want the decision tonight, to make this decision tonight. Please, can I have a motion to have a 9th grade ended, a 9th grade, okay, deciding on the number of students according to the financial, whatever it is. If I have
what do you mean with financials, whatever it is?
What's it going with financials? According to we decide the number of people, the number of people, decide the number of people we're going to have according to the financials presented. 30 people, 40 people, 50 people. You choose that. Because I think the best way to go is for 60 students, 40 students or 35 students may be 0 point, how we call it, the necrotomy at that point, okay? But I want the decision tonight.
Okay.
I'm here 15 years, but you trust me to do, but let me one time at least, okay? I urge you tonight to vote to start at 9th grade this summer.
I just need to add some information that will, depending on if you vote for this or we vote for this, that will be required. One, and this is from the bank, they want the cost of educated construction. We have that now from Matthias, thank you. They want what it will include. We have that as well, as far as athletic facilities, upfits, classrooms. So we have that. They're asking if new classrooms are to be introduced, what will the budget look like, meaning how many students do we expect, what is the state's reimbursement for high school students versus grade school. So I don't know if there's a difference there, if we know what that is.
Which one? You said the last one?
What the state reimburses for a high school student.
Yes, around $8,000. I got this one then already.
The timing of construction.
Yes.
So we have to have that now. That said, if we were to go forward, there is still a potential to not be able to land this by August simply because of the requirements around permitting, traffic impact study, all sorts of things that we're going to find out in a meeting set up with the city of Charlotte on February 14th.
So they want this as soon as possible.
This is a rush job. You know, it's a huge decision for us to make.
5 years
and
waiting.
Unfortunately, John, I'm talking. The president of the board is pushing, you know, based on aspirations without thinking about it as a business proposition. It's inconceivable to me that we would vote on something like this without having the financials.
I'm thinking about this because I have the financials, I have donations, I have it everything. And I proved one, too, that this is another $20,000 that I gave the kids that our parents go to Greece, okay? But what I care about it is about the financial of the school, is about the safety of the school. That's why you voted me to be a president, and you trust me. I am here to succeed, to make sure that the school has the appropriate.
So your argument is that you know best, and we should just.
No, I didn't say that. I said that it's time, it's enough, it's time, and it's time to get to realize our dream. K-12. So let's get started. We cannot manage 60 students or 54 students with the educators, with the business people here. I mean, with the foundation, with the right people we have around. I mean, nobody's objected about having a high school. They came 3 or 4 people here, they say, you know, we're objecting. I mean, how many? 317 families replied, K7, and they say 80% of them, they want a high school.
The truth is that we have again and again parents complaining why we don't move on with the high school.
Yeah, exactly, what we can do with
That's the challenge. And then we have students who say they are leaving earlier because they don't have a high school here to continue, so why stay? I want to go somewhere else for middle school, because then I can continue to high school. So we do see this. I think that, Mr. Perla, the way that you presented, there are 2 things. The first is that we are proceeding with the 9th grade, and the second is that we decide the number of how many students to proceed with 9th grade after we review the finances.
Yes, exactly.
I want to say that I don't doubt you regarding, personally, I don't doubt you about bringing support. Whenever the school needed money, you were excellent at finding the funds. I don't see any of us, and I'm saying it in all honesty, I don't see any of us being able to persuade people to give the money that you bring in as a fundraiser. So I don't doubt this. I think that what Dr. Villano is asking is that comfort of a plan. So I do not think that any of us says that we don't want the 9th grade. Actually, I'm in favor of it, because last year we promised to parents that we're going to work to have a high school next year. If we don't do it this year, then we're big liars, and I feel uncomfortable with that. And I would say again, can we handle 30 students? I think we can. But it would be a comfort for everyone to know exactly the specific steps for the expansion. That's all that everyone is saying. I don't think that everyone is arguing against this.
Okay, if Antonio is not interested to get involved with the analytics, the financials, as he got involved, I will get involved with the special people, the right people here by Friday, and I will have that. I already made the enrollment proposal. I sent it to all of you. I think I sent it to, okay, you saw that. According to this enrollment, I bring you financials for 30 students, for 40 students, and 60 students. And you choose. But I want a decision. We're going for, because we don't have another meeting, because it's going to be too late, because we want to, people are already asking for finding the right school, the right high school right now, and we have people asking, and I want you, tell you what, I don't give orders. I just urge you, because it's the last urge I want from you, to vote to start the 9th grade in August 2020.
So if the vote is for that in turn means that we need to go to the bank and request for the $7 million.
And that's the that's again, this is the song. We may not want 7 million from the bank, but the bank will favor this if they see that we have another 5 or 40 or 50 students for coming from the high school, the number of high school, and also it will be in favor to the bank, because they say, oh, they started, they have 7th grade, they're going, we give them the money.
We basically have to have a decision tonight whether or not we're going to ask them to refinance straight with an extension or with a determined loan amount. We don't have time to wait on that,
Also, another,
or the loans will come due without us.
another point to consider is that if we find through the financial plan that in order for the school to be financially viable, we need 60 students, let's say. Right now, there might be 30 students interested from the current group. There is no guarantee that we'll be able to fill the other 30 positions. Evidence is in the applications that we get for middle school, which is, we don't get enough applications for middle school. What tells us that we're going to get even more for high school?
Well, and remember, I did send an email to the board explaining that if you vote to expand to 9th grade, we have to change our lottery date because we have to go 30 days from the opening. So starting tomorrow, we have to contact every person who's applied to be in our enrollment for next year and let them know we've opened it up to 9th grade. And then we have to have 30 days from that point that it's been allowed and publicized that we're opening in 9th grade.
It's about 7 days.
Yes, sure.
That doesn't matter.
We've already
It's better for us.
we've already,
advertised.
advertised.
And this says too, there's no guarantee that whatever number we give for additional debt requests, that the bank will approve that. We do not have equity to provide them to offset any of that, and they have very clearly stated this will be an uphill battle.
But in this case, they give us the bank, they give us as much money as they can give us. 1 minute. The bank recently, who did, but BOD doesn't do this. We had 9.6 million. We handed out to 8 million. We buy additional property for $1 million in cash. We're buying more property right now. We have $800,000 on the school. We have $650,000 on the foundation, and the bank will tell us they won't at least give us another $1.5 or $2 million for the field of track, for the soccer field for the kids and the playground or whatever, and have a road across to east. The most important thing is the carpool. The most important thing is the carpool for us right now. What bothers us, the road. Will it cost $2 million the road or the what was?
No, it's all in there.
It's all in there. We can leave some of this. Let's say we can leave some. We can do the field track. We don't do the round. We do the soccer field. We have it ready so the kids will have plenty of field to play, and we do it. And wherever we go, we do it. But what we will do is for K-8 rather than for the high school. It's for K-8 the most important thing. It's not for the high school, for the 9th grade.
But the point is, that's still money that we have to ask for, and they're not guaranteed to give us that.
Yeah,
And by the way, if we determine for the financial plan that we need, I'm sorry, I'm speaking. If we determine for the financial plan that we need 62 students to break even, or 50 or whatever, and we only have 30, we could be in deficit for a couple $100,000 at least. So this is not about the $20,000. It could be a big hole. I just want to be comfortable that we know that we can have the number of students.
Even on 1%, if this happens, Tony, here were the people tonight. I'm not talking about $50,000 or $100,000. I'm talking about more than $200,000. Okay, so. And also, I tell you one thing. Also, Mr. Tash, big benefactors have decided to come here, call all of you, about 5 or 10 people of this, talk, have lunch with us here and talk about the school and how can they support us. This meeting will be as soon as possible. Will be created here, and the administration will be here, and you will be here, and you will come here to be here.
Yeah. By the way,
okay. This is very important things I'm saying.
Budget deficit that I'm talking about is not a 1-year deficit, because if we start in the hole, it's going to be another $200,000 the next year.
And I know that right now we're really just talking about financials, and that's what helps the board make a decision. But as the principal of the school, I do want to, as a leadership team, we've been talking about a high school, and we've been wanting to plan with the board to create a high school. And, in our minds, we were thinking 2021. Giving us a year to work with whatever principal you might hire that has experience with high school, so that we can, we're doing an amazing job right now, like with the addition of the AIG and expanding and all of the, we're experiencing the the increase of L population and all of that. And I think that, Monthos is really fine-tuning the Greek program and trying to make it better than it is, because we know that those are the areas where we need to grow. And I just want to speak for the leadership team, because we feel a lot of pressure to execute in a managerial standpoint. I know you're just talking finances right now, but the realistic piece is the hiring of people, which I know that Mr. Perla says that it's not going to affect the K-8, but we want to do this together, and we want the 8th grade that Mr. Newberry has recently started working with to just flow seamlessly into a 9th grade with teachers who, again, we talked about this curriculum committee, that we're still determining what it would be, and because of all of our current situations that we're in handling K-8 that are taking a lot of time, and I cannot commend the assistant principals and Greek director more for the effort. I can't imagine adding another, the pressure of 9th grade to start in August 2020. And I do want to also share that Monthos and I are both going to Greece over the summer. I just want to add the managerial part. I know you're trying to separate it, but it has to be considered in your decision tonight.
LD, I don't know if you can weigh in on this. If we taking into account that there could be a delay with getting, once we get into the week of permitting and putting things in place and schedules with the county and city, if we suggested to the bank to refinance with the 12-month extension, would that give us the time to sort out the financials, to put more discussion on the curriculum, to go back then and say, okay, we have our numbers, we have our budgets, we know it's $7 million, this is what we need. Our goal is to have modulars in place for 9th grade in 2021.
Yeah, I think from a banking
and lock us
perspective,
into that, but
I
give
think
us the
that's
ability to plan properly.
Yes, I think that's your best bet. I think from a construction standpoint, having gone through what I went through in building just doing the site work and stuff related to a church, when you talk about doing that by August, like having a modular, my question would be, can this building support what you need from a high school students for a temporary time? Like, if we don't hit the deadlines, can 30 or 60 students be in this building to be able to be supported if it doesn't open on time? Because that's the big risk. Is that I didn't see a single deadline in the city.
No.
I don't know what your construction was.
And I have the same concerns from the engineers. Do we do the modulars first or the field first? We might not get to both of them by hours. So they have the same sort of concerns.
I mean,
And it's mostly permit
they
related.
can do the half of the job. I mean, they cannot be able to finish the lift and track, which is the most expensive item on this thing here. But when they do the modulars, I mean, every school is doing modulars. It will take 1 year to the modulars. You build in 1 year.
The county has already, I talked to my colleagues there, they have already said if we don't have a prevent meeting with the city before the end of
We're going to
January.
have it February the 14th.
But they said before the end of
Can
January,
we
it all
speed up
plays
this?
into one
And
another.
make it out. We speed up.
Let her talk.
It doesn't necessarily work.
I cannot tell what she's trying to say because she's interrupted. I can't tell what she's trying to say. Let her speak.
They have laid it out very clearly. I work with these folks day in and day out, based on the guidelines that they work with to get the permitting from the city, to get the permitting from the county for the buildings. There's no guarantee within the mix of that, and it's likely somebody in the city, when we have this first meeting, will come back and say, you need to have a traffic impact study done. That's going to take extra time. And all of that could push this back and prevent getting to putting in modulars by 2020. I just, if we can do an extension for 12 months that locks us into ensuring that we will put these in place by 2021, but gives us the time to lay out a proper budget, to have time to navigate all the permitting, I personally think we're in a better spot with that. I don't know, Matthias, if you...
No, I agree with you, and then we can perhaps start on improving the playground or whatever else we need to do that are the small items, and then.
It also gives us time to really focus on fundraising, to be able to go to the bank and say, we do have equity now to provide you, to help you feel more secure about providing us this loan.
The problem with fundraising is that we have people who have been hearing 6 years now that we're going for an extension, and they are not going to give a dime.
Well, that's the point of having the 12-month, that's the point of having the 12-month extension.
But if we make a commitment, Zoe, tonight, to have to go for a ninth grade, but not this year, for next year, to give us time for further study and to come up with a financial plan, why would that hurt your fundraising?
Knowing that it has to be done in 12 months because of the loan refinance.
Right.
Well, we said the same thing last year.
No, we never made a commitment last year. We never, as a board, made a formal vote.
We didn't have it, Yannick. And also, if we have done this in December, that we didn't talk about it, we don't want to talk about, we could catch up with the.
Well, we can't talk about what's
Avoid
happened in the
this
past.
issue next year, can the motion be to expand to ninth grade starting in the 2021 school year? It seems like that meets everybody's needs. We get the commitment that some of us want, but we get the time built in that something we
I think
need.
we have two different motions, because it's that, and I have to have some sort of motion to move forward with the refinancing in the bank.
Right.
And the fundraising, because these are three crucial pieces of things. So I will say that, Mr. Burles, I don't think that anyone here is trying to hurt your feelings.
Zoe, I asked what I wanted. You do,
I know.
you do what the board.
I'll say this, I have great respect for you, and I appreciate and I respect your passion, because you have been living for the school. So I need to say this. I don't think that anyone on this table is doubting in any way the passion and the will to change, to move to ninth grade. I am in favor of it, and I think that all of us are. I think if I hear everyone correctly, the concern is that we don't have the money secured from the bank. So moving forward without having that, and without having all the permits or all the analysis in place, we may end up saying, yes, we move on to ninth grade, but then we may not have everything we need from the state, from the city, from all the other parameters we cannot control to fulfill that promise to parents that we'll make now. So we may be at a very, very difficult position later, because if we don't have, as it was mentioned, the traffic analysis in place, and that will take 3 months, we cannot put the modules in. So what will we do in September?
I've heard it, Joy. I'm sorry, I've heard it. I've heard it so many times. I get what you say, what Gretchen has said. The other time we're saying different things. Now it says it's not possible. But also LD says, can we accommodate the 40 students or 60 students in another way around? The thing is, it's going to happen the same this year, it's going to happen the same next year, and the third year and fourth year. And I won't be here. Now that's what I'm saying. I urge you to start the high school this year. It's got to be the money there. Okay, we won't have any problem. The modulars can be done. I can imagine having 7, 8 months for modulars to be placed on a school when the school needs it immediately. I don't understand the city won't give us they don't have a speed up process because of the school to go and tell us and give us.
I don't know the policy, but when I hear Gretchen saying what she said, it seems that hearing her say that I've been with these people every day and I'm hearing from them, and I know that this is not going to be easy, it's not a guarantee and we won't get the money. Hearing her say that, that's a very negative thing to hear. So I don't want to be in the position of not having what we need. If we have that guarantee from the bank next week, I would say yes, let's have a special board of directors meeting and then let's agree and move on. Because if the money is there, everything can be achieved after.
So by starting the ninth grade, the bank will give you the money because you're gonna have students there. You're going to be getting income inside in here, okay?
He said it's not a guarantee just on those numbers. We don't have equity to provide them.
Have we even provided numbers? We provided enrollment
We've
numbers.
provided some. We've started a 3-year projected budget.
I think we've got to go for another bank.
How many students were we projecting for ninth grade?
So I started a projection on December from the numbers that I had. I don't even know if those are accurate.
What is the number?
And I just did.
Ninth grade.
This time I hear this.
I think I actually went for the 480.
Yeah.
at the time.
So, I mean, how comfortable are we that we can get 80 students in high school? And if we're not, are we all okay with having $100,000 or $150,000 deficit come August?
Yeah, and the only way I had to calculate the growth was by percentage. Because I don't know anything about running a school, I don't know anything about
Operating costs.
operating costs of the school, so I
Ashley
took
made
the
a
current
comment
numbers
tonight. She made the comment
and did a
tonight that the
percentage
teachers for
That's
high
what
school
I
are coming
wanted,
premium.
that's what I wanted.
and yeah, we were $200,000
That's
in the
what I
red.
wanted.
Right.
But there are also requirements for high school that are not requirements for elementary or middle school. And those cost, and those need to be factored in there. And that's where I think Tony's going with the financial
Yeah.
plan. We did that 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago. Times have changed, things have gotten more expensive, okay? We can take that same budget, but we have to redo the numbers.
Exactly, that's what I'm asking you for 24
But
years.
it's not that easy, Larry.
Last
The
year.
requirements may have changed too.
Johnny,
The requirements from the state, do we know that?
Johnny, if I show you, it depends how much you wanna pay the teachers. How many teachers? Part-time, full-time, administrator, and that's it, and you finish.
You're looking at the
The
same
14, oh no, you're right, we're talking too much, it's the same thing and the same thing. Just, I urge you, I told you.
Okay, you
and I
know what
decided, we'll get.
I have a question. Is it possible to know these answers from the bank earlier? First question.
Okay.
Second question, what is the amount of the funds that can be raised? Because if this is the amount that can be raised on the 150, 200, then that's something that every year we worry about how we'll go to Greece and how we'll find the money. Every year there's a 20,000 check that comes in. Every year that we don't make the money to buy the books we need, and we have a request for 6 or 5 or whatever thousand, we get the money to do that. We have a gallon, we got a lot of income from that gala that we had back then. So I have no doubt that the funds can be found because I know who is going to find them. And I know that these people that he's providing them with, they are people who have supported the school consecutively. Is it possible to get an answer from the bank earlier so we know where we're standing?
An answer on what?
Whether we can get the refinance.
With the debt?
Yes.
If I can turn around and provide him the data that he requested in this email by tomorrow, the next day, he can let us know pretty quickly, but keep in mind, they're also up against the fact that they just went through a major merger, and they're feeling their way through what BB&T and SunTrust, now Truist, are going to do, and they may or may not come back.
And I wanted to add one thing that Jonathan, the guy from the bank, said is, we're gonna need 25% down. So,
Equity.
$7 million, 25% of $7 million, so we're gonna need to fundraise that.
And-
So,
And you're gonna need 35%.
Oh, 35, it's 35% of $7 million.
25% we need.
$35,000.
Yeah, we have right now for 60 days, for 2 months.
No, we need a down payment of 35% of $7 million.
And the other thing is, the foundation will get more money.
That's a pretty big number, right? The first time I heard that.
And then
So
in 2 years,
in order for them to give us a down payment.
So you're telling us
That's the first time,
2.45
that's why.
million?
They wanna put, they wanna put us more interest, that's what they're doing.
That's what the bank said.
The bank, that's all.
That is
Where
why,
will we get that from?
that is
That's
why
what
I'm
it is.
asking if we go with the 12-month extension.
You got $2.4 million.
What's the,
The bank said we need 35% of the loan. And that was just them throwing numbers at the,
Let's go ahead and make a motion. I told you what to do. I mean, the money, the people came here, we have the meetings, the $150,000 more, $200,000 more, you have it. Okay?
This is $2.4 million, Larry, it's not $200,000.
For what?
For a down payment on the
To
loan.
be approved, to get the state to start everything.
From another bank, you mean, or from the same bank?
From the
From
same
the same
bank.
bank. We don't have time to go to another bank because of everything.
First time I hear this.
No, we talked about this.
So now you understand why I want a financial plan, right?
There's a
Okay,
motion.
we're just about it's close to ready, it's going to be something.
Something we're gonna do in the.
I don't know.
The motion I need is if we would like to pursue expansion. Phase 1 has come out at $7 million. We also have the bank loans coming due. A request to refinance with a 12-month extension, which will allow us time to plan a budget, to work through the permitting, to work through some of the administrative needs, and give you all time as far as what you need for opening of slots, getting teachers in place, curriculum, all of that. We have to find time, so we know we need to get everything done in.
Yeah, but Chris, I understand what you're saying. So it seems like the preference is both to have a 9th grade next year. Assuming the numbers,
I think that's the direction.
Separate thing, yeah.
assuming the numbers are, well, both to have the loan refinance in 12 months, and so then that would be.
It gives us the window to pursue seeing if everything else is doable.
Yes, but don't you agree that we need to know whether it's this year or next year, if it's 7 million, and if what you're saying is correct, and we need 35%, we need 2.5 million to come up with 2.5 million before we're even able to go to phase 1. And when we come to phase 2, which will be 2 years later, we're going to need another 2.5 million. So don't we want to see this year by year? Some sort of a plan?
That's what this is to give us time to do, by putting the 12-month extension, it will give us the time to build this plan with projections that we need, to really understand the operating costs.
And that's all I'm saying.
But that's what they shared from the bank, because all this is new to me. I have no idea that.
This is just tonight. This is that.
These last ones were in 2 days ago. Now, he has said in the December, I think it was December that he came to? Jonathan came to, he said we will need about 30% equity.
When I talked to Jonathan one day, they didn't decide, the first time they decided not to give any more extra money, not loan and things like that. And because they told them, the foundation, not you, the foundation told them that they don't have money, we have deficits and things like that. And when we called him, and I called him to his boss, which George Bushell, and we got him here, he says, yes, we can give you money, then they give us what to do. Now they change the mind again.
I can't speak to that, all I can speak to is what I have in writing.
I have to call George and Pete Bushell and get together and.
Okay,
And
so
ask them for
since
2.4 million?
Mr. Bruce, since that you have a different insight, is it possible to revisit that?
No.
Because I have to say that if every year we need to provide 35%, there's no way we're coming up with 2.5 million a year. That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's right,
So,
it's not the right bank, it's not the right bank for us.
Every bank is gonna ask for the second. It's not gonna matter which bank.
I think it's important to find out what's the case.
The equity we have $1,300,000, new equity.
The problem is, we also are against the deadline of the loan refinancing, so if we don't take any action, I mean, you could speak to this more, LD, if we don't, I mean, if we say, well, we're gonna go to a new bank, but we can't get that done before the refinance loans come due.
Yeah, because it's a school over 501c3, they'll work with you to not flooding.
You also said the other time that we were going to have the GNC here and talk to them. You didn't talk to them at all?
I've talked up and teed up, but we need the financial package, we need all that information.
Some of
audit.
the items that started.
You have everything. Somebody should give it to you. We have it.
So I have a
We don't have the
question.
budget, and you need audits, right? You need back financials.
Yeah, Ms. Bryson, can I ask you a question? How many empty classrooms could we come up with in this building? Forget about the multipliers and all these other things. If worst case scenario, and we don't have any of this money, and we still want to go with 9th grade, we need at least 3 classrooms from what I can see from the previous time that we did this exercise.
We don't have 3 empty classrooms. Because we've increased, we are very, very happy that our middle school is almost full in every grade. We went from, borderline 60, 65 to now we're 76, 75, we are almost at 80. So we have 4 home rooms so there's 4 classes going on at all times. But then you add on to that Math 1, Math 2, you add on to that the choice of Spanish or Chinese. We might have 1 empty classroom each period, if that. And we use the language lab for our health classes. So we don't have 3 classrooms up here. And the entire gym building is filled with classrooms. We do not have a single empty classroom. This year we do have one classroom in the second grade hallway, but we use it for interventions and it's filled all day long because of tier 2.
So how many more years are we still okay? Forget about high school. How many more years are we still okay?
We are okay to add a 5th, 3rd grade. That's it, 2 years. We're maxed out.
3rd grade, so
Yeah.
the year after, we're gonna need additional.
Correct, because we would
Okay.
assume that that intervention room next year goes away and we have 5 second grades. And then when we have 5 third grades, we lose the AIG classroom, and so they'll become a traveling AIG group, and we do not have space for a 5th, 4th
We
grade.
almost need a building by then.
We can have other
Modular
option
will not be
here.
enough.
We can have that option here, 5
By
classrooms.
then, we'll need a building with
Jimmy,
10 classrooms.
please, Jimmy. We have another option here, we have 6 classrooms, 1 minute please, 6 classrooms right here and here. That we should have done it in 2015, and it cost them $350,000 and we didn't do it. But we're smart enough to bring this building all the way down and have room from the Wellington Road to add there at least 4, 5, and offices to our classrooms. And
Yes,
this,
but Mr. Brothers, we don't have a time machine, so now we need to work with what we have. So what we have is until 3rd grade, we're good, but then after that, we need space for the upcoming 3rd graders and 5th graders. So, it's my understanding that we'll definitely need, I don't have a problem with modulars. I've seen wonderful modulars working with very high quality schools. So I don't have a problem with that, depending on what you choose to put in. Right.
So I'll make Gretchen's motion to propose that we pursue the bank, BB&T, to extend our loan by 12 months.
Can I ask again something? Is it possible to confirm that that's the case? Because hearing all these, I had a completely different view myself on the economics, because it was very differently presented. This is brand new. I'm hearing this for the first time. Is it real? They want 35% every year? This is crazy.
Because the equity, we don't have equity, we have mostly land, which is not, we don't have.
A bank only lends 65% on raw land.
Yeah.
Like they want buildings, they want something that's collateral, something that's tangible.
That's the catch-22, basically.
Right.
Whether that's BB&T or another bank, they're gonna be asking for that.
according to the number of students you have, this is how the capital bonds working.
No, this is different. It seems that it has to do with equity. What they're saying is very different, Mr. Brulis. We have a land, but it doesn't count as much as having a building in the land, if I understand them correctly.
Correct.
Yeah, and
So because of that, it doesn't count the land as enough equity. That's the challenge here.
that's right, and also the balance of the current loan, so it's the two, it's the catch-22. Which was the reasoning when Jonathan gave us, when he said it 35%.
Yeah, that would be very so good.
I don't think we have time to change the bank before the loans come to maturity.
Before we extend it, the decision
If we extend it, and then we want to discuss it, we're fine, but we have to address this.
I'd like to have this request. It's fine to extend it, and we'll extend it, we'll make the motion for it. I would like for us to have I want to know who does what, because that way we will have a 3-month deadline. This group did X, and then a 6-month deadline, and then a 9-month deadline. That way we are working towards the goal. I don't want to come again next year at this point and say parents again, oh sorry, we cannot move to high school again. It's getting embarrassing.
No, I
Two
think
different things here. 1 minute. Well, let's decide on one. The foundation and then the board will decide about the extension, whatever, the extension of the law. This is a different thing from establishing a high school.
It's BOD, right?
it isn't, because if you want,
Extend, if they can
Let's
extend the
just vote
law,
on that motion, I'll second the motion.
extend the law, extend the
Okay,
law.
all in favor?
Yes.
How about that?
The foundation.
So, LD motion, you seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just got, okay.
The foundation.
The foundation.
You need to vote.
We
just vote for a vote.
Yeah, aye. So, is there any, before, I wanted to discuss this, but. I wanted to say, is there any question to ask?
Oh, I'm sure there will be, but do you have a ballpark on?
They may not because what we're doing is we're locking into a higher than market rate. We're continuing a higher than market rate right now because the rates are really low. So I think if we totally refinanced, we would have a lower rate. My guess would be we'd have a lower rate if we did a 5-year or 10-year extension.
That's why we wanted to lock now.
But we're locking in, and so because we're locking in the existing rate, I think we might be able to get away from it.
One of the things that was done a couple of years ago, we had other companies that specialize in construction and all of that came in and talked to us. That's why I think Larry mentioned capital bonds and all this, that came up with different ways of financing this. And that's something that if we don't rush into it, we look into it, that may be another avenue that we can explore and not be tied to one particular lending institution.
Yeah.
To do that, to build out a projection, to do things the right way.
Yeah, I think, so if you need me to be part of that negotiation, I think we can negotiate not to have to be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I would.
Based on our rate.
Okay, so the other thing I'd like to do is go ahead with, from the board, make a commitment that we will open a 9th grade effective 21-22.
I want the other way. I want 2021. That's
Well,
my question.
I make the motion that we open a 9th grade, giving us time to study it thoroughly from the financial, from everything else, 21-22.
So, okay, that's fine. So.
Who seconded it? Okay.
Second. So, John, I want to ask you, wouldn't it be better, because if you make the motion and then you say we're gonna study it, so that means starting the 9th grade will be contingent on what we find out, right? I mean, it's not for sure, because you said we were gonna study it.
Well, I think we make a commitment. You know, I make a commitment every day that I'm going to go to work. I may not go.
Okay, very good. So that's contingent on, you know, the financials lining up and, you know, all this sort of stuff, because.
The data we have now.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so then,
Maybe commitment's not.
Wouldn't it be better, yeah, commitment might not be the right word, unless you say contingent on other decisions further on. Maybe it's state our intention to move to 9th grade, pending investigation and planning to be done in a very systematic way. And then, you know, I think the way to go about it is the same way that we had a project plan, you know, for the phases. You know, we need to include, we have to have a project plan for how do we start 9th grade? What do we need to know before we're ready to commit, right? And the financials, for me, that's an important piece.
And pending, working on fundraising and.
Yes.
So let's make a decision next year. Okay. Thank you very much.
No, there's a motion on the table.
There are 2 motions.
Wait, you gotta call the motion.
I asked, answer my question.
No. Take your feelings out of this. You're the president of the board. You need to call for the vote right now, and.
Do you have a second?
Yes.
Okay. But he says he's objecting to that. That's what I'm saying.
No, I cannot object. He can.
I reworded my motion.
His motion, I believe, is to expand to 9th grade starting the 2021 school year with the exact number of students to be determined at a later date, pending further investigation and planning. Is that accurate?
So it's not sure.
It's pending further investigation.
It's pending, so it's not a decision. It's pending.
Contingent.
Okay.
And I second that.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I'm staying. Telling you that. What, 1, 2, 3? I'm sorry?
I will go with the group, Mr. Berlin.
Yes, okay.
You do a good job.
Thank you. I hope you do a very good job.
Yes, sir.
I hope you will do a very good job, and I wish you the best, and I wish you the best. Thank you.
So to make this happen, the next step would be to put together a group of people who understand financial planning to put together a plan, and that would include the two treasurers and, you know, people who work at the bank and so on, and some people from the administration, because we need to know we're going to need this many teachers, this many classrooms, you know.
I think
And get the money as well, and
we
the money as well.
who have worked, who have operational knowledge of high school.
Yes.
So
Well-
at this point, our administration is great. I think we need people from outside to run a high school.
Yeah,
So it wouldn't be a bad idea to contact the people from the other charter schools who have started a high school to find out what they did and how they did it.
And we can lay out timelines too as part of this.
Yes.
And
Have a
the
project.
Charlotte Lab, who was mentioned in there, who their high school is beginning in 2020. They hired their principal, and his name's Ricky Singh, and he has already reached out so that I could get for the school, like, what are the top 50 things that we need to know immediately to get started on, because he's been doing it all year. That's all he did this year, was plan for the high school that's opening in August. And he has offered to help with that, so.
Yeah,
That's
we
the
could
type of
hire
person.
an administrator.
That's what we do.
Okay, the next item is E-rate funding application grant.
We already done that.
We've done that, and, we have the.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't
Oh,
done
no,
that.
not that one, I'm sorry. It's access grant. Sorry.
So number 10, E-rate, I had sent the board information about this in December because we want to expand. One of the pieces that we would need from the state is E-rate, which is where we apply for the funding for the wireless access points and everything that's funded by the state. Our current IT department, Steve Joyner and Associates, they do not do E-rate, but they recommended a consultant that we could use, and as I mentioned in the email, and Steve Joyner laid it out specifically what we need, and it would be 5% of the grant money, and it ends up being approximately $2,500 is what you would end up paying a consultant to do the E-rate, but because there was a thought that we could potentially expand in August of 2020, we need to apply for it immediately. Knowing it will be the following year, we might be able to wait until,
We send out the reports, you don't have to repeat what the report said. I send out the report to everybody, so it's how much money is for the grant, right, and that's it. And if you want to approve or not.
okay.
So how much is the amount of money the variety is asking for?
But it's not needed right now.
I don't think it's needed, because we just
Okay,
voted not
that's what she
to.
was-
However, what I do need to share with you is information that I received today. Before we had Steve Joyner and Associates, we had another gentleman as our IT director. He had applied for E-rate funding to expand into high school back in 2017, which would have come in 2018, which is when Steve Joyner and Associates was hired. Because we did not expand into high school at that year, the money was supposed to be reverted back to the state. They didn't discover it until this week. So we need to give the state back $20,237. That was given to us through a PRC 36, and it's not a question, we're being told. So the board needs to vote to give the state back $20,237. That was grant money awarded to us that our previous IT director had applied for. We never used, we did not use it. And at the end of the year, it was just
So we don't have a choice, I'll make a motion,
When did we get
give
that
the
money?
state back that money.
2000,
Went from a surplus of 120.
Yeah,
Right.
bingo. All right. Thanks a bunch.
Yep.
and just, you know, that was not in any report because we just got that.
So,
So who did that application?
Andy.
Mr. Harper, our former IT director, E-rate funding used to be like 2 years out. You used to have to apply, and then you'd wait a year, and it took forever to get it. So by the time we actually got the money, it was 2000.
This amount of money gets paid.
No, we never spent the money.
Yeah, but, yeah,
So
Here we
that
take the
is
money.
the reserve.
Yes.
There's a motion, so you need a second.
Okay.
I'll second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Close.
Gentlemen, because I would like, ladies, I would like, you said pending, because I'm not sure if I'm gonna get involved with this. You said that you're gonna, you're gonna come up with a committee for the analytics.
I think that's what we need, right?
You cannot go on
If you allow me, I propose to you to make that, to do that committee, and
What do you
present it to
mean?
the board of to come up with a committee, because we have experience. I just appoint you, I'm trying to avoid it.
I think it's financial, it should be the two
The
treasurers.
finance don't have anything, how many, they don't know about how many teachers, what kind of teachers we want, what would things. This would be, this would be somebody who knows about high school, as we did the other time. We said so many part-time, so many full-time administrators, consultants, or whatever it is. And then we come up with the amount of money we get from the professor and give it. Because, as I said, you never do this. You will never come to the next year. Pending that word, pending there, it doesn't mean anything to me. It means that next year maybe, but the following year maybe without 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. Okay, and you always got 1 or 2 people coming here that they don't want to have a high school. Okay, but we don't care about this. We care about the people. We care about the people who want to stay here. Some people, the other people have their own choice. So I'm just saying, our point, I'm sorry, Zara, I'm sorry, and you, Zoe, you can have that, to give to that growth enrollment, growth, and we can do the analytics source, how much would cost, how many teachers we want, how many part-time or full-time or whatever. It's an easy job. To me, it's an easy job. I got with the grow enrollment. I gave it to you already, and I can.
Mr. Burles, I don't think that the biggest challenge here is finding out the number of teachers or the courses or the administrators for that high school. I've seen it happen again and again in charters. I don't think that this is the main concern. The thing that worried me and stressed me and scared me personally was hearing that we don't have equity, we may not get the money, and as a result, we may start this fall, we may start in September with a deficit of 200,000 of 2.5 million that we cannot get. So that's what panics me, that we don't have the finances because we lack the equity. So if what was shared, which I didn't know, I said it many times, I didn't know about all these. I thought that financially it was feasible because the bank would give us the money. What I heard tonight is that the bank will not give us the money, that it requires 35%, which is 2.5 million, and there's no way we can.
I think this is out of my thoughts. This is the first time I think tonight about for $2.5 million. That's the bank. If the bank said this, I have to go consult with the benefactor and go to the board, the BFD there, and talk to them. I don't know what financials they gave them, what they told them, and how many. I don't believe that. It's out of my thought.
Well, I would trust the people who have been communicating with the bank that that's what they were told. Now, if you would like to have a secondary discussion, perhaps you would all go together to the bank and have this discussion.
I'm sorry.
My concern here is not, again, I'll say it again, it is not hiring people, because I saw the quality of people we had when we were looking for principals. So I'm not concerned about that part. I'm more concerned that we will not have the funds. That's my concern.
Yes, thank you, Zoe. Thank you. But the thing is, who went last in the bank and they didn't call the president or the treasurer of the Socrates Academy, because we signed both. And Jonathan said, wherever you deal with him, he has to be the president, CC or whatever. So who met with Jonathan, and why they didn't get this, and they didn't call me? I mean, I understand, because we signed as well. not only the Board of Trustees, we signed the bank loan. We also, so how this came about, I just hear this time at meeting, we want to vote about things, you say, oh, $2.5 million. Oh, they don't give us the loan. Well, why are we asking for $7 million? We asking for the first phase. The first phase $1.7 million, $7 million. I'm sure about that. So you tell us how that we're going to have so many.
But he has to go off the projections that we have to give him. So even if it comes under, that's great, but the number he's going to have to use is the projections we're getting from Myers and Chapman.
Oh, yeah,
We don't have a choice in that. They won't look at a loan if we don't have numbers.
And they didn't tell you they don't give you $3 million. They didn't give you two. They didn't give you even $1.5 million. You know, if we had $1.5 million, we get the inroads here, we get the background, whatever the playground, we get all the things. This is the part which is the number one right now thing that we have to do here. Even if we don't have the high school, it's number one is inroads into the new property. I mean, I don't understand what you are, what this bank. You get. Joy, you got.
Can we revisit it?
Joy, you don't understand. Maybe you didn't get what I'm saying right now. Because the way they follow, to get the loan from the bank, I don't think is the right way. Because they went to ask the bank, give us $7 million right now. Of course they won't give you. They may give you $2 million. That's what we wanted, or $1.5 million. And then go for the big loan with the banks later on, and also with a big grant we're expecting for we had compensation yesterday with a big grant we're expecting to a big organization, around $3 to $5 million, and the bank won't give us $1.5 million to do the first thing that the parents want right now. To ease the carpool.
The $7 million though. If we ask for just $1.5 million, we're still going to have to give that.
No, we suppose we told you to ask them up to how much you can give us. Here what we have.
You can't guarantee that without documentation.
Yeah, but you get the documentation. We have the documentation. How many students we have? How
much money we want, how it's going to be used, and the timeline.
I mean, you tell them the first phase we want to do this and this. And later on we put in. But because the importance of the parents is this, the parent was asking for this and this and this. I want $1.5 million, and then meanwhile we get the dollar, we get the fundraising, the big grant and things like that, and maybe we don't need to go back to them.
So that's making it more like 4 or 5 phases, because that's breaking in phase one and.
Well, I wasn't expecting them to give us $7 million right now with where we were. I was expecting them at least to give us $2 million. Now we have 9.6. We have 9.6 with 600 students. Without the land, without the additional land we're getting now.
We're still paying 7.7 out of those 9.6.
I'm sorry?
We're still paying 7.7 million. We still have that money in there tied up. And when they look at what we owe versus what we have, and truly, I expected the $7 million because they gave us $13 million for the whole thing. So we took the building out. I would expect like half of it, so I wasn't very surprised to see the $7 million.
So we're expecting them to give us $2 million to do the most important things we want to hear, that the parents ask for, and forget about the modular. This is the leasing. This is nothing, and no cost to us if we lease the modulars here. And proceed. We want to solve the soccer field for the K5, for the K8, and parents won't complain. And we are in business. Besides the money that
let's say we self-funded and we got the modulars up. In 2 years, the modulars are irrelevant. It doesn't provide you anything. So in 2 years, you have to build something.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the bank, they're going to see like, okay, we can give you $1 million right now, but in 2 years you're going to need, you're going to need 14 million or whatever to build a building. And like you have to have the equity in at that point.
Yeah, but we're going to have students. If we're going to have
that's not going to close the gap to $5 million.
Exactly why we asked them to plan now.
That's what they do, all with the banks and all the developers around the United States. You see how much they gave it, $15 million, they gave $24 million to the Portland, that is in Socrates. So many, I send them this to you, every day, 7 million here, 15 million there, 14 million, and an established school.
I understand, but Socrates also missed covenants in their loan agreement the last 2 years.
They will
We were
look
in
at that,
default.
and they will take that into account.
That comes into play.
They said, we don't take this into account, because it happens once, we don't,
We waived it, but
it wasn't the reason.
There, and
It
it's
came
new
back.
in the file.
It's a new bank.
Don't let them ask other things, they told us also other things, now they told us when you you and Charlie, whatever, who conducts the bank, they should CC me or contact me as well, so we can meet together with the bank. Now you got an answer from the bank, I don't know who talked to the bank, what part of the agenda are we on?
They just,
No,
she knows what information she has.
Jonathan said that was in November.
I wonder, because this is not gonna be resolved now, without the presence of the bank to better understand what's happening. I think it's maybe time to move to post session.
I agree. I second your motion.
Mr. Barola, you need to make the motion, I think.
He doesn't make, you make the motion.
You make the motion, you say second.
I'll make the motion to move to closed meeting.
And I second it.
Okay. I think the motion we should don't have any personnel to talk
No,
about.
she said you have a closed session item?
We do.
Okay.
I'm
All
sorry.
right.
Do you have anything personal, Marcus?
Yes.
Yes?